Good afternoon and welcome to the second webinar in the Leading for School Improvement free webinar series. Our topic for today is leading to create an equitable school-wide ELD model. We are thrilled that you have joined us for the learning. I'm Dr. Karen Woodson, the founder of Leading for School Improvement. As a recently retired principal of a high EL impact Title I school and former district-wide EL director for a major school system in the US, I have a story to tell about teacher-led EL-centered school improvement in a high EL impact school. So I founded Leading for School Improvement to share with leaders and those aspiring to lead best practices for school improvement that are EL-centered, collaborative, and strategic. Throughout today's webinar, you will be using pausing, and responding. In other words, use your Q&A window if you're joining me on Zoom for questions. I will pause to address your questions during the webinar. And then I'm asking you that as we proceed through the webinar, that you respond to the polls that will be administered. Please go to your chat window and tell us what school districts or state you currently work with. I do see a member joining us from PGCPS in the state of Maryland. Awesome. And right now, in the interest of time, we are going to proceed with the webinar as is. I'm sure additional participants will be joining us shortly. During our time together, we will envision a school-wide approach to an ELD-centered approach on collaboration between ESOL teachers and classroom teachers. We want to envision what that school-wide approach to an ELD-centered approach entails. Secondly, we're going to explore how to utilize ESOL staffing to create equitable conditions for ESOL teachers. And thirdly, we will receive guiding questions and a list of resources to begin to build an equitable ELD model. Leading for School Improvement has developed a leadership recipe to establish a teacher-led school improvement journey. Each ingredient in this recipe is shown here in the continuous improvement cycle of plan, do, study, act. You may be familiar with other continuous improvement cycles, such as act, assess, adjust. But for this recipe, I'm going to be using plan, do, study, act. The first ingredient in this leadership recipe is PLCs, or professional learning communities, which is shown across the continuous improvement cycle of PDSA. So you can see professional learning communities, there's a planning phase for that. There's also a doing phase, a study phase, and an act phase when we are implementing professional learning communities. Professional learning communities are incredibly important in a leadership recipe for a teacher-led school improvement journey because it provides a structure for deep collaboration amongst teachers, but in a way that is aligned to your school improvement goals. The second ingredient in a teacher-led school improvement journey is SMART goals and action plans. And you can see that too goes across the continuous improvement cycle. Ingredient 3 is where we are today, an equitable ELD model. That is absolutely central to making sure that we meet the needs of students in high EL impact schools. So I'm going to be starting with the ELD model today. Professional development led by teachers is the fourth ingredient in a leadership recipe for a teacher-led school improvement journey. And you can see that the professional development that is teacher-led also goes across the continuous improvement journey. This recipe is what encompasses Leading for School Improvement's mission. This is where we are. This is what we're going to promote moving forward as we share best practices for getting that teacher-led school improvement journey in a high EL impact school off the ground and running. As I just explained today, we are going to focus on the third ingredient, which is an equitable ELD model. We're going to learn how to envision an ELD model. That's going to take us in the plan phase. And we're going to receive critical tools that we can use to implement an equitable ELD model to begin that journey. Allow me to share with you a case study of LSI Elementary School, which represents a typical high EL impact elementary school in the United States. At LSI Elementary, we had an enrollment of nearly 1,100 students that were equally split between male and female. 91% of our students identify themselves as Hispanic, with 7% identifying as African American. This particular school is a Title I school, which in many high EL impact schools in the US is often the case. Let me give you a little bit of information about LSI's our elementary school students. In this particular school, I'm talking about ESOL students. Let me explain. ESOL, English for Speakers of Other Languages. We use that term to refer to students who are enrolled in a specialized program to learn English as an academic language, or to learn English as a new language in school. Students who participate in a specialized program to learn the language are referred to in this presentation as ESOL students. So at LSI Elementary, our ESOL students came from, believe it or not, the US. Most of them, nearly 2/3 of our students are US born, and many are surprised to learn that the majority of our ESOL students are US born, but that is indeed the case, not only in LSI elementary school, but in many schools across the United States. We have to recognize that most of our English learners are indeed born in the United States. At LSI Elementary, we were serving students who come from the Northern Triangle in Central America. And so we do have a population of students who are from Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. Very recently, there was a small demographic shift where we realized that we are pulling more students from Guatemala. And El Salvador used to hold the #1 spot of non-US born ESOL students, but that has been replaced by Guatemala. The impact of that shift is seen on the top languages spoken slide, portion of the slide, where you see Spanish obviously as the top language spoken, but Mom is recently the second most commonly language spoken in LSI Elementary. And that is due to the demographic shift, with more students coming from Guatemala and bringing their indigenous languages with them. Let me talk a little bit about the term English learners. When I say English learners, I'm referring to the broad umbrella term that loosely refers to students who have a language other than English in their home. Many English learners may or may not even qualify for ESOL, but when I say English learners, I'm referring to a broad umbrella term that loosely refers to students who may come from a bilingual home. Under that broad umbrella term, we have students who come from a bilingual home who qualify for ESOL services. Their proficiency in English falls into the range where they are eligible to receive the support they need to learn an additional language, and they are then enrolled in the ESOL program. So at LSI, we had 765 students enrolled in an ESOL program. We also had 4 students who qualified for ESOL. They came from a bilingual home, but their parents refused ESOL services. Then there's another type of student called reclassified ELs. These are students who used to be in the ESOL program. They achieved enough English to exit the ESOL program, and they exited within the past 2 years. So consider reclassified ELs as former ESOL students who exited within the past 2 years. Of course, those of us in the field realize that when you have exited the ESOL program, it does not at all mean that you are on par with a native English speaking peer. In fact, it does mean that you do need additional supports to continue learning academic English, quite frankly, for many years. And again, as a bilingual person myself, my Spanish is fluent, but I am still learning Spanish and have been for the past 30 years. It's not to say that our reclassified ELs are learning language forever, but I just want to highlight that they're in that reclassified category because accountability systems recognize that they still have ongoing language needs. Then it's this 4th category, every ESOL, and I put a question mark there because in any high EL impact school, you're going to have students who exited 3 or more years ago. So yes, you're not reclassified anymore, but you did exit 3 or more years ago, and you could still very well have language learning needs as you continue to progress through your educational program. So when you look at this notion of English learners in its broadest sense, you realize, I know about the ESOL students, but wow, I have other students in my building that are potentially ELs. They are potentially still at some point in the language acquisition process. And when I think about that, I realize that, wow, 85% of my kids are ELs. What's the point? The point is, if we are, as leaders in a high EL impact school, only looking at students who are actively in ESOL, you are not seeing the full picture of students who actually can benefit from structured English language support within the content areas. Our English learners, whether they are currently in the ESOL program, just recently exited the ESOL program, or perhaps exited quite some time ago, they form a range, they form a continuum of needs. Not all of our English learners fit into one little category. We have ELs who are gifted and talented. We have ELs who are completely on grade level and ready to go. They just need the English language piece. We have ELs at different language levels of proficiency in English. Some of our ELs have learning disabilities like any other student would. Some of our ELs are newly arrived to the United States, having just come from outside of the US within the past year and need specialized supports to adjust. Some of our ELs have interrupted or limited formal education. Some of our ELs live in Title I areas, and because they are living in poverty, they are most likely at a higher probability of failure. They're at-risk students. Our charge then is to figure out, wow, how do I create conditions that meet all of these various needs and keep the instruction at the highest of levels? So it starts with a vision. One of the things we need to do as a leader in a high EL impact school is to take the time to envision what an ESOL program might look like. Let me explain. So at LSI Elementary, we said, okay, our vision is that ESOL teachers and grade level teachers would form professional learning communities, or PLCs, to create equitable conditions for all students to learn academic English and grade level content simultaneously. We decided with the numbers that I just shared with you that we were way beyond trying to target individual students, although you do that too, but we had to shift to say, wait, the impact of our EL population is such that we just need school-wide equitable conditions for all students to learn that academic English and grade level content at the same time. That was the vision that we adopted. So what was the previous vision? It was one where ESOL teachers are seen more as a case manager. And this typically happens in many schools. It's been my experience over the past years. I've got 35 years in education. I've got a lot of feedback from different schools who deal with this population. And what happens typically is that their ESOL teachers are assigned to serve equal numbers of ESOL students across the grade levels. Equal numbers. So I'm going to have 50, you're going to have 50, I'm going to have 50, and I might be in grades 2 and 3. You might be in grades 4 and 5. You might be in grades 2, 3, and 4, depending on what equal is in your school. Also, when we are envisioning ESOL as a case manager approach, individual teachers then make determinations about which curriculum they use to deliver ESOL instruction. Which method are they going to use? Are they going to pull out? Are they going to plug in? And individual teachers determine the amount of time that they provide on ESOL instruction. Generally speaking, newcomers, students at a lower level of ESOL, English language proficiency, do receive more time for ESOL instruction, and students at the higher levels tend to receive less time. But these decisions are being individually determined by teachers. In other words, the three variables of curriculum, service delivery model, and the amount of time do create what I would call random acts of improvement. Many of you are familiar with this chart in organizational leadership, where if we're not careful, we can have well-intentioned staff all working very hard to do what they feel is best for children. But we're going in different directions. Why? Because in the world of ESOL, I have this case management approach. I, as the ESOL teacher, decide for my 50 kids, okay, we're going to use this curriculum. We're going to plug in for this, but pull out for this one. And I'm going to provide 30 minutes of instruction, maybe 5 days a week. Well, guess what? My colleague is doing something different. And my other colleague is doing something different. How, with this level of variance then, are we going to move the organization so that we can eliminate variance and align our efforts to meet school improvement goals? You can't do it when you have random acts of improvement. The benefit of taking the time in a high EL impact school of envisioning what your EL program could be to create equitable conditions is that it will align your arrows. You're going to be able to rein in how your ESOL teachers are approaching those three variables I mentioned. Once again, the variable of curriculum, service delivery model, and time. We need to align our arrows. The way to do that is by envisioning what an equitable ELD program in your school could be. So let's conceptualize this another way, this notion of equitable conditions. I'm sure many of us have seen these graphics many times before. And everyone, the graphic on the left, where we see equality, everyone gets to see the same ball game. And of course, the familiar graphic that you see here is used to depict equality, where everyone gets the same to see the ball game. That's the first one. And here you have equity, where everyone gets what he or she needs to see the ball game. In both instances, the wooden fence is used as the barrier. However, in the justice frame, the wooden fence is removed completely, enabling everyone to see the game. While LSI argues that our school-wide ELD model creates equitable conditions for ELs, and it most certainly does, the ELD model can actually create justice for students when ESOL and non-ESOL teachers are in true collaboration and are leading the school improvement journey. Justice means our students get access to grade level curriculum, regardless of their English language proficiency. We've completely removed the barrier. So, part of being able to create equitable conditions for school-wide ELD means we need to take a moment to define ESOL. So at LSI Elementary, we said, look, let's not make it complicated. ESOL for us is two things. We know that we have to differentiate academic content. So my reading, my math, my science, my social studies, we look to our ESOL teachers to be able to help us differentiate that academic content for students at varying English language proficiency levels. Many schools have this. The problem is we stop right there. This second definition of ESOL at LSI is all about structured, systematic, academic ELD, English language development instruction. We're talking about the rigorous and systematic instruction of academic English as a new language. How does academic English work? What are the vocabulary features? Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3 words. What are the linguistic complexities that I need to attend to? What are the language forms and conventions that students need to learn? How does the grammar work? How do I actually learn the language? So defining ESOL at LSI meant these two components. From there, we looked at the role of the ESOL teachers and we said, how do we begin to rein in that variance that I talked about? Well, we said if our goal is to create equitable conditions for school-wide ELD, that means our students are learning English all day long. They're learning it in reading, they're learning it in math, they're learning it in social studies, they're learning it in science. That's our vision. We had to shift the role. We said, okay, we're going to assign 2 ESOL teachers to each grade. I'm not going to worry about bean counting how many students they have. Because I'm thinking, okay, if we assign 2 teachers to each grade, they can really become experts in that grade level curriculum. That's important when we want to do content-based language instruction. We also said ESOL teachers will not work in isolation. They are going to be part of the grade level PLC to which they were assigned. So we did that. We said, okay, we need somebody in the ESOL world to be the lead teacher of PD, and we did that. Then we went ahead and we said, okay, what is the role of the ESOL teacher? What do they do? And we came up with these 5 bullets that you can see to really clarify what ESOL teachers do when we are trying to create equitable conditions for school-wide ELD. And so we talked about developing language objectives aligned to the content objectives. We talk about the need to collaborate extensively with grade level teams. We talked about ensuring accommodations are in place. We talked about the fact, and here's a big one, while ESOL teachers are a member of their grade level team, ESOL teachers also must come together and form a professional learning community amongst themselves. And that was critical in an ELD model because it enabled ESOL teachers to focus on the adult learning needed to implement the ELD across the curriculum approach. ESOL teachers really needed to dig deeply into the research and best practices in order to be the resource for the school and the experts in the school. We also asked that our ESOL teachers monitor the development of academic English on a regular basis using a particular resource called the WEDA Interpretive Rubric. I'm not going to get into WEDA during this presentation, but that is a resource that we use. The key here is that someone needs to be monitoring the development of academic English on a regular basis. If you're relying on those old English language proficiency test scores that the state gave months and months ago, you're doing yourself a short service, you're selling yourself short because the levels are no longer accurate at this point. So this is a sample school-wide ELD model. So you heard me talk about, okay, what is a sample? How does it work? Here in LSI Elementary, we had a very strong collaboration co-planning component, and we put structures in place to make sure that our ESOL teachers could meet as a PLC among themselves, that our ESOL teachers and grade level teachers met for a full day every month to build their capacity as ELD experts and to monitor that school improvement plan. ESOL teachers and grade level teachers also met daily as a PLC for lesson planning. So this piece here was absolutely critical, and I would say foundational to creating an equitable school-wide ELD model. We had to think about how we would meet the needs of level 1 students. These are ESOL students who are at the beginning levels of English language proficiency, and we wanted to define it so that we can begin to eliminate the variance that we saw as hampering our school improvement efforts. So again, came to agreement as a team as to how we were going to work with level 1 students. For level 2 students and higher, we also came to an agreement as to how these school-wide conditions for language learners were going to occur. So we agreed that our ESOL teachers would plug in and that they would provide the explicit ELD instruction in the general ed classroom. We also agreed that teachers would create English language development stations in reading and social studies and math science. That is where they learn how the language works in these core content areas. We also decided that ESOL teachers would create collaboration stations in reading and social studies and math and science so that ESOL students would have the opportunity to interact in the language. We have to make sure that students are able to speak, write, interact read and listen to academic English each and every single day. We look to our ESOL teachers to be able to provide those experiences within the context of grade level curriculum. So that's a tall order, but one that is made much easier when we understand that the resources you see at the bottom of the page are absolutely critical to moving forward with a journey to an equitable school-wide ELD model. The beauty of this model is that it was co-constructed with our teacher leaders working in tandem with admin. And that was a beautiful thing to see happen because our teacher leaders own this journey and it got outcomes for children. Wow, we're happy about that. So this is what station rotation looks like. This is what the teachers at LSI Elementary School created. Look at their collaboration for how we were going to create conditions for language learning to happen all day long. So in reading and social studies, we want students swirling, speaking, writing, interacting, reading, and listening in the content areas of reading and social studies. So what does it look like in the classroom? We created a small group reading station where students can meet with the teacher to work on skills that they need. Technology station. We had an independent work whole group station in context. Whenever you see the word in context, we mean you've got to use that grade level curriculum to make sure that all students, regardless of their English language proficiency levels, work with that grade level curriculum. So differentiation becomes key here. Now, where does ELD happen? Where's that English language development instruction? It happens in the English language development station. This is where the ESOL teacher comes in, works with a small group of students to teach them how English as an academic language works in reading or in social studies. It's a language lesson and a rigorous one that is situated in the language of the content area. Whatever is happening in the content area of reading or social studies, that language lesson matches completely. The ESOL teacher is also responsible for designing what we called a collaboration station. In the collaboration station, this is where students have academic conversations, where they learn to interact and negotiate meaning in the academic language that they are learning. This is also done in the context of grade level curriculum. So if we are focusing on main idea and details of a particular story, that academic conversation is actually about the same thing. It's in the same standard as that grade level content area. Teachers at LSI Elementary also designed, this is all created by teachers. I was just so proud of their work. This is what happens when you actually have a vision for an equitable model and then you empower your teachers to work and design. But anyway, I'll go on, I digress. The math science station rotation model has a similar look and feel. Once again, this is how you teach language in the content area of math and in the content area of science. As was the case with the station rotation model in reading and social studies, math science station rotation will require that students swirl, speak, write, interact, read, and listen as they interact with math and science content. You see the same similar stations that were in the previous model simply because with this, we can maximize our ability to meet students where they are. Through being able to group them effectively, we can accelerate students. We can meet students who need gifted and talented opportunities. We can meet students who maybe have gaps in their learning through no fault of their own. We can meet the needs of that newcomer. We can meet the need of the student who's just on grade level in his country. This allows us maximum flexibility to meet student need. It is indeed equitable. Collaboration between all teachers, differentiation at all stations. Now, one of the challenges with the model is you only have so much staffing, which is where I'm going next. That's another outcome for this presentation, but you only going to have so much staffing. And so what we are working with is making sure that that collaboration station and the language of math science station, that students are able to run these stations. And this was when we were in brick and mortar prior to the transition to distance learning. So with the collaboration station, we were working to ensure that students can run those stations, even if the ESOL teacher were not physically present. And we were also doing the same with the ELD stations. That is very much a work in progress, but when you empower your teachers to do it and give them the research and best practices, the time, space, and respect, they have the expertise to knock it out of the park, and they will do it in a way that is completely aligned to your school's specific needs. So, I've been talking for a while. It's time for a checkup. Yes, a checkup. I'm going to give you a moment to read these 6 questions. Let's see how you measure up with your ESOL checkup. So please reflect on the questions below. And I'm going to launch a poll and ask you to complete it. So let me give you a moment to read through the 6 questions. Do you have a vision? How do you define it? What model do you use at your school? What does the ESOL teacher do? What curriculum do you use? And what's the extent to which your ESOL and grade level teachers are collaborating and co-planning? So I'm going to launch a poll and give you a few moments to respond to that poll, just checking in to see how your ESOL program measures up in terms of our desire to envision an ELD approach that creates equitable conditions. As you answer the questions in the poll, please know that they are completely anonymous. And as you are responding to that poll, I am going to take the opportunity to welcome another participant to our webinar from Washington, D.C. Welcome, Washington, D.C. is in the house. It's great to have you here. So once again, I am asking for participants to complete the poll. Responses are coming in. I'm going to end the poll in another minute or so. All right, let's see the answers. So let's end that poll. I'm hoping I don't need to relaunch. I'm not seeing any requests in the chat window. So let's share the results and see how we do. Does your school have a vision for ESOL? And 100% of us are saying, no, we do not. Okay, so if you're a high EL impact school, you definitely want to take some time to envision, because my guess is you have a lot of the variants that I described earlier during the presentation. How is ESOL defined at your school? Some of you define it as explicit content-based ELD instruction. Some of you are saying it's differentiation of grade level curriculum. And then half of us are saying a little bit of both. So it looks like we've got some energy around the two definitions of ESOL. The third question, what is the ESOL model currently in place at your school? We are pull out. No one is plugging in, and half of us have a sheltered program. Okay. With question 4, what is the role of the ESOL teacher? So we wanted to know, does your ESOL teacher teach English needed to access grade level content? Does your teacher differentiate grade level content? Neither of the above. One of you said they don't do either one. I'm wondering what they're doing. Okay. And then half of us said they do both. Okay. Interesting. Question 5. Which statement best describes the curriculum used for ESOL instruction at your school? Are we using, let's see. Okay. 100% of us use a separate ESOL curriculum that's aligned to RELA, to the Reading English Language Art. So that is very interesting. We have about 50% of us who are using something else. Okay. And to conclude, to what extent do ESOL and grade level teachers collaborate and co-plan? We have 100% saying we do not collaborate yet. I like that, yet, the power of yet. We definitely want to move to a place of collaboration. In that way, we can certainly make sure that we have equitable conditions for EL. That is what LSI is all about. So I'm really glad that you're here. So let's shift a little bit to staffing. I painted a picture of an equitable ELD model. And as leaders, we have to figure out, well, what would the staffing implications be of an equitable ELD model? Well, it'd be helpful to understand your enrollment trends. So at LSI Elementary, we are looking at the enrollment trends for the past few years, with the blue bar showing K-5 and the red bar showing ESOL. And I like to look at the data over over time, because you can easily see trends that are very apparent that may lead a leader to see what's coming down the pipe. I don't know about you, but when I look at these trends, I see that we are growing and ESOL students are becoming a greater proportion of our student enrollment. This is what this tells me here. I'm wondering what's going on with my newcomers, because I noticed that we were getting more and more newcomers. So I decided to look at this data here for 3 years and was astounded to see that as our ESOL enrollment increased, so did the percentage of students enrolling who were newcomers, meaning that they are from outside of the United States and are enrolled in their first year in a US school. They're newcomers. This number right here, yeah, it tripled. Boom, boom, boom. I can see a tripling of our newcomer population between 2018 and 2020. What are the staffing implications? How do I program for that? Because I know newcomers have additional needs that I want to be able to support, intensified needs. They bring a lot of assets, no doubt. But from an instructional point of view, I'm really going to have to make sure I pay attention to what's happening there. What are the staffing implications? Down here, I like to see, just what are my enrollment trends for the past 3 years broken out by grade level? Sometimes it's helpful to see, what's happening at pre-K, what's happening at the primary levels. Sorry about that. I'm having trouble with the screen. Let's go back. There we go. What's happening at the primary levels here? What's happening? This just tells me I've got growth across the board. So looking at a few enrollment trends gives me some information as a leader. And I go, what do I do? Okay. Then the budget comes out and I'm told I've got 12 ESOL teachers, 1 lead ESOL instructional teacher. I got 4 para-educators, and I've got 1 bilingual ESOL counselor. Jump for joy, because many schools don't have that resource, but LSI had a resource like that. So this is what I'm given. As a school-based leader, we don't get to ask for infinite resources. You're given this, and you're asked, okay, how are we going to use these resources to create an equitable ESOL model? We spent this time talking about an equitable ESOL model. Now, you can take your cell phone and you can open your camera and you would take a picture of the QR code, okay? So this is a QR code that's right here. It's going to open to a Padlet. So you're going to see a Padlet, and I will stop sharing just for a moment so I can show you what the Padlet's going to look like. Okay. So your Padlet will look like this. And what you're going to do when you get to your Padlet on your phone, on your device, on your computer, you would hit the plus sign, and then you would go ahead and add your feedback. How would you use, and I'm going to put it back, how would you use the 12 ESOL teachers, the 1 lead teacher, the 4 para-educators, and 1 ESOL counselor? You heard the need. And as you're thinking about what to write on that Padlet, you heard me articulate the need. We have to make sure that every single student in a high EL impact school has the opportunity to learn grade level academic content and the English that goes with it at the same time. This is the resource that you have. This is what you've been given. How do you assign it? So once again, if you're joining us or you're just on, you are going to, again, take a picture of that QR code with your phone, and it's going to take you to a Padlet where you would share what would you do with that staffing. Let's go to the Padlet and see how our results are coming in, or if results are coming in. What would you do? You are obviously an aspiring leader. You're in this webinar. And so part of the challenge is managing your resources. What are you going to do? So we do see on the Padlet one suggestion to place ESOL teachers at specific grade levels so they can focus on serving at that grade level curriculum. They would be focusing on 1 grade level, pushing in and pulling out as required, only at 1 grade level. So I see that this participant, that's right, you want him at 1 grade level, okay. Listen, let me talk about this 1 grade level issue just for a moment. Listen. Students must have access. We talked about equality, equity, and justice. We talked about equitable conditions. If our English learners must have access to grade level curriculum, and we are relying on ESOL teachers to be that expert that they are, and to make that happen for them while simultaneously teaching the language. And we're asking them to do that in reading, in math, in science, and social studies. You tell me, how is it that your ESOL teacher is going to be at one grade level? They must be magicians. Because clearly, an ESOL teacher has got to be plugged in to the grade level curriculum at that grade, all of the subject areas. They've got to be plugged into that grade level PLC. How do you do it? Looking for other suggestions for those who may have them. And of course, if you're on the Padlet that I'm showing here and you're new to it, you can like it. So I'm going to like that if you wish. I also see that this particular person is recommending 2 ESOL teachers, 2 ESOL paraeducators to help in the grade levels where more pullouts and the sheltered is needed. Okay. Counselor for ESOL level 1 and newcomers only. Wow, okay. That sounds like an equitable decision. In fact, if I'm looking at this particular idea, by using that counselor to zero in on level 1s and newcomers, I'm intensifying my supports to the segment of the ESOL population that needs it the most. It's not to say that all segments of the ESOL population can't benefit, but right now, my newcomers and level 1s are the ones that can most benefit from the supports that an ESOL counselor can provide. Those of us who are joining us for the first time, I'm going to slip back now to the actual presentation. But if you are a leader, you're used to dealing with little staffing equations like this. If you are aspiring to lead, welcome to the world of staffing. It's never enough. I'm going to tell you. Dr. Woods is letting you know you'll never have enough. This is why we stop focusing on cases and bean counting and began focusing instead on creating the conditions in the school so that no matter where the student is, the student can learn that critical grade level English and academic content at the same time. All right, let's see if we can go back. And I could do a course on staffing, but thank you for playing along with us. So let's go to the next. So I'm going to begin to provide some resources for you as you embark upon creating a journey that is indeed an equitable journey. Here are some guiding questions that can really help you flush it out for your school. Remember, our equitable model ended up being station rotation. That was LSI's answer to building an equitable model. But that may not be the case for your school. Every single high EL impact school will build an equitable school-wide ELD model that is customized just for that school. What I'm going to provide for you would be some guiding questions and resources that you can use to embark upon this journey. You see, there's a lot on co-planning, collaboration. These are the key questions to begin to think about as a leader with setting up those critical structures to bring your ESOL teachers fully into the fabric of the school. Some guiding questions around level 1 students, and then some guiding questions around students who are at an ESOL level 2 or higher. Every single resource listed below is absolutely critical to being able to build a school-wide equitable ELD model. I would encourage you to get a hold of these as you pursue your journey. They were indispensable to us and to our teacher leaders as we study to studied together to create what ultimately became our answer to a school-wide ELD model, which is station rotation. So, in addition to the guiding questions and resources on the previous page, and by the way, these guiding questions, don't worry, they're also on our LSI website. So don't feel like, oh my goodness, I can't get the questions. Yes, you can. They're all on the website, and I'll show you a little later where to find those. So to plan for your journey to an equitable ELD model, it is a journey, as shown by this picture here. You don't just snap your fingers and say, okay, this is it, and then implement. Your teachers, you ever see that emoji with the brain exploding, like mind blown? This is what will happen with your teachers if you just go, do this. You need to understand that it is indeed a journey that is perfectly done when admin and teachers join forces to learn and lead together. I am giving to you a packet that is going to help you embark on that particular journey. You can, right now, if you have your cell phone, you're going to take that and you're going to scan it, and it's going to open up a resource for you, asking you if you want to make a copy. Do it. Scan that resource right to your cell phone right now. You will be able to access that complete journey, as well as rich resources that will help your school plan for a journey to an equitable ELD model. Our students are relying on you. They need us to create these conditions so that they can thrive.